Welcome back to part 2 of Sega Saturn horror games. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at 4 more Sega Saturn horror games. Each one of these games were released exclusively in Japan, meaning that they all have some form of a language barrier in them. But I did try to go through and play each one with and without a guide to give you the best idea of how I think you should play them. So, without wasting any more time, 4 more Sega Saturn horror games. In early 1998, the incredibly enigmatic Baroque would be released on the Saturn in Japan. Done by Sting Entertainment, this roguelike RPG would be one of the Saturn's most unique gameplay experiences. Set in a world that has succumbed to an apocalypse that has created countless mutated creatures in its wake, the story behind Baroque is truly strange. You start the game outside of a mysterious tower with no memory as to who you are or why you were there. You are quickly tasked to enter the tower and take on the mission of reaching the bottom floor. Deaths will come often in Baroque, but fear not. Each death reveals bits of the story, character moments, and clues as to what's going on. Gameplay is set in the first-person view, where you will fight enemies, collect items, and explore your surroundings. Baroque's graphics will not win any awards, but the game runs well, and the majority of the texture work is solid and well detailed. The sound work is especially effective, providing an ambient mood that makes the world feel foreign and frightening. Baroque is not without its concerns, however. The game is hard, and its unforgiving nature means restarting after a death often means losing your levels, items, and weapons. This kind of retreading of the same areas and circumstances can become tiresome, and many gamers will quickly lose interest. Those that commit will see many of these levels are randomly generated, meaning you will see different layouts and creatures fairly regularly. There are guides out there that can help you through the most confusing aspects of Baroque, giving context to its story and characters, and helping you enjoy this unique game a lot more. This one is dirt cheap, and a worthy addition to dedicated RPG fans' libraries. It isn't for everyone, but it has enough unique content to recommend that you very least give it a try. This game was also remade for the PlayStation 2 and Wii, and was released in Western markets if you can believe it. Look at those if you want to pass on the Japanese-only Saturn version. Landing in mid-1995, the Cyberdreams classic point-and-click adventure Dark Seed would be released on the Saturn in Japan. You begin the game to a haunting dream of an otherworldly machine planting an embryo inside your head. You awake, thinking it just a dream, and so the game begins. You explore your house and find mysteries about its former owner, as well as the realization that your dream was anything but, and you need to do something about it. Dark Seed's gameplay and simple interface make navigating its world very easy. You'll interact with environments to advance the story, as with other games of its type, but this one has a twist. If you miss various clues within certain time limits, the game cannot be beaten. This means you'll likely have to restart a number of times to get things right, or use a guide to help you navigate the world. Unlike the other games in this episode, Dark Seed's story is actually in spoken English, so I recommend that you at least play the game once or twice without a guide to experience the game on its own merits. A guide will ultimately help you with understanding things better, and I do recommend that you use one once you make a focused run for the ending. Dark Seed is presented old school PC style, with simple 2D graphics that aren't particularly colorful or detailed, but you have to love the nostalgic drawl to the method. The soundtrack is varied with great ambient noises and appropriate changes in mood. This is another Saturn adventure that costs next to nothing, and I highly recommend it for fans of the genre or psychological horror fans in general. It's a product of a bygone way of making games, and it still has its place of worth in the Saturn library. Mid-1997 would see the sequel Dark Seed 2 released on the Saturn. After saving the world in the first game, our protagonist returns a broken man. Suffering from anxiety, memory loss, and bouts of insanity, he returns home to his family in an effort to regain his life back. Things quickly spiral down, and your girlfriend is found murdered, and the entire town thinks you did it due to your unstable mental state. You quickly discover, however, the assholes from the first game are back and trying to take over the world again. Or are they? While Dark Seed 2 plays extremely similar to the first, the graphics presentation is vastly superior. Everything is far more detailed and has much more color on screen than the first. There is a big letdown here, however, as the game is completely in Japanese now. Both the spoken dialogue and text conversations are in Japanese, meaning that you'll miss a ton of context to the story and characters by playing without a guide. In fact, I highly recommend that you start this one with a guide to help you understand what's going on and to alleviate early frustration. Dark Seed 2 lacks the charm of the first in many ways, but can still be a good experience if played properly. The fact that the story is completely ambiguous really helps, as you never truly know if the main character has gone completely insane, or if what you are presented with is indeed fact, leaving it all up to your interpretation of the events. Dark Seed 2 isn't as cheap as the first game, so I only recommend it to those of you that truly enjoy this genre or really liked the first game. The point-and-click classic Phantasmagoria would see release on the Saturn in mid-1997 under the name Phantasm. This massive 8-disc game would use tons of pre-rendered scenes and full-motion video in its presentation. You begin the game awakening from a disturbing dream in your brand new mansion. You quickly find a way to release a malevolent spirit, and things go to hell shortly thereafter. Phantasm pulls no punches, and uses some disturbing imagery to get its story across. In fact, it has a scene in it that I will not spoil, but it's one of the most surprisingly visceral things I've ever seen in a video game. Graphically, this one is a major step back from the releases you may have seen on the PC, with reduced color, far worse full motion video compression, and terrible environment detail. So unappealing is it graphically, you'll find some things simply unrecognizable until the scene shifts or something points out exactly what it is. Despite this hurdle, the game plays well for its type. The point-and-click style gameplay is easy to follow and advance, and the sub-menu and item interface is quickly understandable. Because the game was fully translated to Japanese, I highly recommend that you play this one with a guide right from the beginning, especially to understand any prolonged conversations or meeting new characters. It is possible to muddle your way through by yourself, but you'll get much more from the story and understand the character motivations much more if you use a guide to help you. Fortunately, due to the popularity of the PC release, the game has multiple walkthroughs and FAQs that will help you with the Saturn release here. The price of this one has also been steadily going up, and a complete copy will likely eclipse the $50 mark if you take the plunge. Phantasm has its problems, especially in its ugly presentation, but there is a charm and curiosity that drives its gameplay and story, and for those willing to invest the time, it offers a good throwback to 90s adventure gaming. Now I've got to tell you guys, I found all 4 of these games very playable on the Saturn. Once you find a guide that covers enough of the game for you to understand what the heck is going on, a lot of the gameplay will fall into place and you'll understand exactly what it is you're doing. Most of these games are also not very expensive, which means they're easy to find, easy to pick up, and they won't break the bank if you find that you don't like them. So if you're looking for something a little bit different on the Saturn, if you're looking for something outside of that normal shoot 'em up and fighter gameplay that tends to dominate the Saturn library, these are definitely 4 oddball and out there games that you can give a try. I am Sega Lord X. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you next time.